You're listening to We All Go Forward, a podcast on self-leadership through setbacks. With ownership, action, and growth, be set back, only to be catapulted forward into a more progressed, truer you.
Hey, y'all, and welcome back. Can't y'all tell I sound energized? Aren't you proud of me? I'm proud of me. Proud of you guys, too. If you're holding up, listen, if you're holding up in this holiday season, give yourself a pat on the back. Give yourself a round of applause. Because it's the holiday season. I listened to actually today at work we were talking about that. I listened to all the Christmas songs. I don't know about y'all. I listened to the B101. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. And I listened to the Motowns and all that. And the Merry Christmas to all of you. So, okay, I'm gonna stop. And of course, I listened to my Haitian Creole Christmas. Okay, y'all don't know anything about that. Minuit Chrétien. Haitian people always think that they're opera singers to a degree. I don't know why. I don't know. We get a little mix of everything, but the old school ones, yeah. C'est l'heure solennelle. For those of you who know, what's that? Oh, Holy Night. In French, yes. We learned these things in Haitian church. I can't speak French fluently. Don't ask me how, but I can sing it, okay? It's just the way the ball bounces, in my mom's words. That's the way the ball bounces, Kimball. She used to say that all the time. And I'm like, Mom, are you meaning to say that's the way the cookie crumbles? And she's like, it's the way the ball bounces, Kimball. And I said, okay, I'm just going to. Actually, I've adopted that because it kind of makes sense. That's the way the ball bounces. Let me not talk bad about my mom. I don't know that she's tuned into many podcast episodes. She knows that I'm doing this, but I think I would have heard a little bit more attitude had she heard some of the things I done said about her. So I'm just going to move on. Anyway, I wanted to start with a question for the listeners in terms of how's your holiday season going? Are y'all doing all right? Are y'all all right? Okay, I won't do no Varnell Hill impressions right now. But I was wondering, yes. I know I don't like when people ask me, am I all right in the holiday season? I don't know why. I don't realize it till the moment. Like somebody asked me, I think a neighbor or a coworker, somebody, you all ready for the Christmas season? And then I'm like, I am. Yeah. When in actuality, I know daggone well I didn't wrap not one gift. I didn't have not one gift till last week, maybe yesterday. I'm not going to tell y'all which one because y'all going to judge. But I would like to know from you, what kind of holiday person are you? Are you the person you start getting your gifts like last year, 2 years ago? You just got a storage closet full of gifts that you've been collecting. Are you the person maybe since the summer you've been getting gifts? Bravo. Did you start at a normal September, October, November time frame? Or are you like, I won't say like me, even though I just may have exposed myself. Every year I think I'm doing better, but apparently not. I might look like this person this year, but where you just started or you about to start on the 24th. God bless, Godspeed. Whatever you do, we support you. Let's not forget our listeners who maybe don't celebrate as well. There are other holidays that are going on, or maybe you just you don't do Christmas. Okay. We want to wish everybody happy holidays, Merry Christmas, happy holidays, like NSYNC said. Merry Christmas. I'm not going to spend the whole time singing. We're going to talk about our attitudes. So, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, and a Feliz Navidad to you, okay? Good morning to you in my Martin voice. But yes, I'm hoping everybody is just enjoying their season. I think even though there's so much stress around this season, it's a great time of reflection. It's a time of family. It's a time of, and whatever your family is, could be your chosen family, your family of choice, or your family of origin, right? In terms of, we can't always pick who we're blood related to, but if some of that's not working out the way you wanted to or intended, then you definitely have choices out here, right? We talk about that all the time on this podcast, and choose wisely in terms of the relationships you have and those you surround yourself with. People who hopefully pour into you and just give you so much joy and give you reason to be thankful in this season. So yeah, that's where we are. We got a lot of great feedback about the Attitudes of Progress episode part 1. And just kind of reading through the rest of the stuff I had jotted down for this episode, I'm like, yeah, this is timely, guys. I think it is. And it's very important, even for myself. I won't say even for myself, for sure for myself. Just reviewing it, like, this is great. This is just a great reminder, a great refresher. And remember what I said last episode, that if you feel like you're good on most of the attitudes, that's great. Just keep maintaining those areas. And if anything just, triggers or applies to you in ways that you need to improve, then we're going to get working. All right. So today we are continuing our conversation on the attitudes of progress. Let's get into it. Our first attitude that we're discussing today actually surprised me a bit when I jotted it down, but it is timely for me, especially in this season, because it's been like a bit of a topic internally with myself, but it's an attitude of self-care. And my question here for all of us is, are you built well? And you can take this in all the ways that you would take it, because actually in this step, I mean it in all the ways that you can take it. And the reason why it surprised me is I typically wouldn't talk about this subject in quote unquote all the ways, right? Both the external just as much as the internal. But I felt a conviction to discuss this when we're talking about attitude. Are we built well? And if not, we need to be building ourselves well. So first, obviously, internally, this applies to, are you building yourself well in terms of your attitude? That's what we're talking about, in terms of your mood, in terms of your mentality. But externally is where I really wanted to stress this point as well, because the fact of the matter is, guys, we can't discuss attitude without discussing the fact that sometimes our attitude may be poor. Our attitude may be negative. Our attitude may be even depressed, or we're not feeling confident solely because we don't like what we see. Like, we talked about the fact that attitude is a settled way of thinking, right? But we went a step further and said that settled way of thinking is now manifested in our behavior. So what we are and what we see and how we carry ourselves externally is wholeheartedly a reflection of our attitudes. And sometimes we try to isolate those things, right? We try to say, well, that's not connected. And that's not true. Like, I've talked about how that we have like a life pie, right? And if you just think in general, like, we have our physical, we have our emotional, we have our spiritual, we have professional or financial, we have all these different areas. But at the end of the day, all these segments come together to make one pie, right? So even though they seem isolated, they're not. They're compartmentalized, but they're integrated. And so what you do in one area affects the other area. And our goal is really wellness, where we're like not perfect, but we're doing well in each area of the pie. So let's think about attitude in the same way. Attitude is an internal thing. Yes, it is. But that's one part of the pie. And because it's reflected in our behavior, which means it's reflected in things that can be seen, the other side of the pie is wholeness, in terms of, are we building ourselves well, both internally and externally? So it's funny how we can get this when it comes to our environment, right? Like, how many times do we say, oh, just being in the right environment has impacted my attitude? Like, I'm in a better mood. I'm feeling more positive. I'm having more faith because I'm in this environment that's surrounded by beauty or goodness. So why would we think that looking at ourselves and then not seeing what we'd like to see is any different? We're visual. I had to remind myself, we are visual a lot more. So you have people who are on one side of the extreme, like, everything, if it don't look good, I don't want it, even though internally it's like crap, right? And then you have those people, like, it only matters what's going on internally, and externally it could look like. Neither one is healthy, guys. Like, you see how much you smile when you're on that tropical island. You're smiling when you see that beach. You're smiling when you see like a beautiful animal, like a peacock, right? And all of its display of grandeur and all of its display of beauty. You're smiling when you see a well-designed home, right? That's me. If I see IG got me on a chokehold with food videos and design or cleaning videos, I just be like, oh my gosh, this is my happy place. And don't even get me started on all the teeth we can see in our mouths when a plate of food is just plated right and it tastes good. Child, talk about internal and external, okay? So that leads me to think, guys, would you not smile and have a positive attitude like that if you looked at yourself and saw yourself as the work of art that you envision yourself to be? Like, this is not a campaign. I probably should have said this sooner in a step. Hopefully I didn't lose anybody, which I don't think we did, but this is not a campaign that there's one specific look, there's one specific style, there's one specific shape. Nope. I really don't subscribe to that thinking. However, it is a campaign for we all have our own unique styles. We all have a way that we envision ourselves as something that represents beauty and confidence for ourselves. And it doesn't matter where you are in life, where you are in your journey, you need to work on displaying that because you need to see that. Like internal you, your attitude, your way of thinking needs to see that manifested on you on the outside. When you feel good, you feel good. This is true. But when you look good, you feel good too. And this is like also if you have physical goals, if you have nutritional goals, because all those things, if you feel like I move better, I feel better, like with my gut health, I'm breathing better, I'm tolerating my activity, all those things, you'll feel better. Your confidence goes through the roof because you're building yourself well in every way. I got here with this thought process like earlier this year, I think. I had this moment, right? Because I've shared that I'm a nurse and I clean up well. Like I do clean up well. I'm able to, I should say, get dressed and look in a way where I'm happy with how I look. However, everybody knows, who knows me, my testimony is I can do a good job for an event or something like that. But the day to day, I struggle. I really do because one, it takes me sometimes, maybe just in a season of life, a lot mentally to want to even get dressed. It's maybe call it being a nurse. I will say since I started wearing scrubs because I was that girl in high school that used to wear I used to love dressing up, put on heels, got my cute jeans, wear dresses, I wore whatever I thought was stylish and whatever I thought was cute. And it was really important to me at that time. Once I put them scrubs on, y'all, and got the letters RNBSN behind my name. And I put them clogs. It was probably the first pair of dance schools that I ever wore. They was pretty comfortable. I haven't found another pair since that goes well with my feet. So I'm on another train now. But the first pair of dance schools, my God, with them scrubs, I said, well, I've been wasting my time all these years. This is where it's at. Okay. But then slowly and surely, that coupled with being tired on my days off, oh, your girl, I ain't got time. I don't really care about the outfit. I really don't. And it's not to say I was out here like I'm busted, but catch me on the right day. I'm just saying. Okay, that's why I say some people just think I'm a cutesy girly girl if they see, I don't know, social media or see me at an event. But I like to think that I might have some neighbors, y'all. And I don't go out to the bus stop looking crazy. I'm not no offense, but I won't get into that discussion. I'm not a wear things that should be worn in a house type person outside. No, I'm not. However, the sweatpants will be on. Okay. The hair might look a little disheveled, but this is why the baseball cap had me in a chokehold. And I swear by it because at least it helps me get a little gathered together. But my point is that after a while of baseball caps, Monday through Friday, I started thinking, I don't know that I like the way I'm representing myself. Right. And so I had stumbled upon this woman called named Linda Page, and her business is all surrounded by confidence and beauty. And she has this saying that I like where she says, get up, dress up and represent, you fill in the blank, your faith, your husband or wife, your children, your family, your whatever it is you represent. And I thought that was so dope because she talks a lot. Well, she directs a lot of her conversations towards, maybe not, but I think she works a lot with stay-at-home moms. And the reason why she references her conversations with them a lot is because she's like, this is a key example of someone who you're minimizing who you are, right? And that's manifesting in how you look. And so if you minimize yourself and say, I'm just a stay-at-home mom, and so you're dressing in a way where you got Cheerios all over in the hair and everything. Listen, for me, it's rice. I might have some rice stuck to my pants by the end of the day. Even though I'm not a stay-at-home mom, listen, the days when you home, you feel like you're doing both. You feel like you're both. So she's saying to them, like, your kids are seeing who you say you are. And so when you now get up and dress up and represent what a stay-at-home mom is to your children, they're like, Mom is the boss. Mom gets things done. Mom makes sure food is on the table. Mom makes sure bills are paid. Mom makes sure that when dad comes home, this is arranged. Mom shows how a partnership works. Mom is demonstrating the daggone thing, and she's doing it well. And so it's our attitude. Oh my gosh, it's the attitude shift. And then you see these women. I didn't sign up for the program, but I did like one of her seminars, and I also have her book called Style of Beauty that I'm actually currently reading through. And I'm like, I just love her perspective because particularly with people who align with faith, again, directing to y'all sometimes, we like to think, well, it's only, again, what's going on in internal, and worrying about my external is not a spiritual thing. What? I mean, this lady goes to talk about, which I agree, because I read it too, how in the Bible, even God, when he was explaining how they should make a priestly robe, right? Or the ephod. And hopefully I'm saying it right, but it's kind of like this overlay, this vest thing. And I mean, the linen, the colors, the purple, the cords, God gives detail in that thing in terms of you better look good. And just the way, even if you want to think about when it comes to Noah's Ark and all the detail and accuracy and precision that it came to, because if it's not built well, it won't hold up well. Oh my goodness. I'm staying on this topic a little bit longer than I attended. And it's crazy because when I wrote an attitude of self-care and I said what I was going to talk about, I'm like, I don't know if this is my strength to talk about it, but it's resonating with me and it's important. If it's not built well, it can't hold up well. Oh my goodness, guys. I'm trying to tell you. And look at nature. Like, what in nature is dull? Like, nature has beauty. Nature has style. It has flair. Okay? Like the nanny. She was working at a body shop and flashing quick. She had style. She had flair. I'm sorry. Okay. Y'all know the random songs pop up in my head, but the nature got style. It got flair. Okay? It was there. That's how they became the nature. Okay, it don't quite apply. But I mean, God, they got style. They got style. Look at how the human body is fashioned. I mean, we always like to joke and say that when Adam saw Eve, he said, whoa, man, because she built well. Okay? Nature has colors. It has personality. It has design. And yet we who are a beautiful creation, we think that we're dying on our hill of, well, it's not just about the way we look. I can agree. I agree with that statement in a lot of ways. But I think we have gone, like I said, to the extreme on both sides. You do matter, both to yourself and to people who are looking for someone who expresses themselves in a way that they would like to. Linda says, fashion is also a conduit for opportunities, for business, for conversations, because this is true. When you dress up in a style that's you, let's say you're a quirky style dresser. Let's say you're like a little goth. Let's say you're very glam fashionista. However you depict yourself, whenever you dress like how you are, you'll attract people who are like-minded. That's so true. When I see somebody like a woman who's just looks great, I mean, classy, style, I'm just like, I have to stop. I'm that type of person like, girl, you look good. Okay? You a big fine woman. Okay, I'm sorry. I need to stop. Girl, who was you playing with? No, you look good. I have to tell, wow, you look so beautiful. Okay? And it attracts people to you. It starts conversation, and you might find like-minded people. You might find people who are on your, just on your spectrum, and you might have open up conversations into, okay, let's link up for this. Let's partner up for this, and business opportunities too, because now you're exuding confidence. And it was a lot, y'all, but self-care, an attitude of self-care. Are you built well? Our next attitude is an attitude of gratitude. Even in a setback, what do I have that I need to be grateful for? And what am I overlooking that I'm actually working with and working with very well? We need to count things that are going well. We need to even name them. You got to get real specific, and you have to assess what you have, because the assessment, as we've talked about, is awareness. And once you're aware, that's how you can now begin to express. So let's talk about this awareness. I actually had the perfect thing to talk about here, because it was a few years ago, actually, I had wrote this devotional, and I'll summarize it down to in a way that we all can understand and it can apply, and it does apply to everyone. But let's imagine a farmer who, here I go talking about farmers, but when you're collecting a harvest of things, let's say you've been planting corn or you've been planting pumpkins, harvesting first takes time. So you have to literally, it's not going to happen in a day. It's not going to happen in a week even. You need to take time to pull up everything that you have. And it's not just that it takes time, but it has to be timely. If you come and take anything you're harvesting too early, then it hasn't fully matured yet, right? You have to take it at its peak so that it can be ready for use for you. And if you take it too late, then now you're subjecting this harvest, this crop, this product, this thing that you poured into, this thing that you've produced, you're subjecting it to risk. You're subjecting it to issues in the environment, whether it's weather or insects. You're putting it at risk to no longer be a viable option. And so we have to take time, and we have to be timely. The reason why this is important is because now I got all my pumpkins, right, laid out like, whoa, I just saw a field of pumpkins. I had no idea my crop yielded all these pumpkins. Like, we are pumpkins out the wazoo. This now affords you to do three things. You can now say, all right, with all these pumpkins, I'm going to take this percentage solely for use. Like, we need to eat. This is going to sustain me. This is going to sustain my family. It's pumpkin season in the house, okay? We're going to make some pumpkin soup. We're going to make some pumpkin pies. We're going to have pumpkin spice lattes, okay? Yes, I know the kids want to go to McDonald's, but we ain't got no McDonald's money because we got pumpkins at home. It's like that, okay? This is pumpkins. The pumpkins are sustaining us. That's one thing it allows you to do. Now that you also know how much you have, the second thing it allows you to do is distribute, right? So I have what I'm using, but now I can say I want this percentage to distribute, whether that's in giving or in selling, which would mean income that I can now reinvest into my ability to plant additionally. You got me? The last thing that it allows you to do is to have pumpkins to store for use for a later time, because even though I reaped a great harvest this season, potentially around the corner down the line, something could happen where I may not yield as much. And so if I have some to store, that will save me for later. This will give me future seed as well too. So there are benefits in all of it. And so now if we take this and we look at like, okay, Kim, I'm sure you're catching on already, but how does this apply to me having an attitude of gratitude? Okay, well, when you have gratitude, it starts with you first assessing all that you have. Like I said, first, what are you working with? And you taking the time to list that out so that way you can manifest an attitude of gratitude. It takes time. Like, sometimes we're just leaving things on the field. Like, sometimes you're like, for example, you might say, I'm grateful for my kids. Moving on. But did you take time to really look at what that means? Like, are you, I'm grateful for my kids, but I'm also grateful that they get off the bus every day safely. I'm grateful that they're surrounded by adults at school and family that protect them and don't harm them. I'm grateful that they have good friends in this season. I'm grateful that they're not ill. And even if they are dealing with some type of illness or health issue, potentially that there are things available, resources available to me now that weren't available to other children or other people in different eras. Like, you see how I'm not leaving anything on the field. I'm not leaving anything unharvested because I took time and I got every single crop up. And so the next aspect of this is that I have to be timely, right? When it comes to assessing my areas of gratitude. And if I go to harvest something too soon, potentially I'm not allowing that area that I could be grateful for to mature fully, right? That might look like sometimes where we're like, okay, I took a try on this business. I took a try on this, this job. I took a try on this relationship. I took a try on this, and it didn't get to where I thought it would get. It didn't really reap what I saw, but I'll just be thankful for the try. And it's like, you know what? No, you didn't give it time. You got to actually keep working on that thing. You got to give it time to manifest everything that it will be. You got to give that crop, that thing that you're producing, time to grow into the full blessing that it is. And then now it's peak season. It's peak season to pluck it and say, look at what I've grown. Look at what we've done. Like, look at what has been created in my life. And so you can't take it too soon. You got to take it at that peak. And sometimes we even take it too late, right? Where we are, again, ignoring so many blessings. And we're like, we're not even paying it any mind. And yet the blessings out there dying is being subjected to things in the environment, is being subjected to negative attitudes, is being subjected to injury. And it literally is no longer able to be used. And used for what? Used so you can have an attitude of peace. Used so you can now position yourself to have so much joy because you're aware of what it is that you have. And so that's us taking time. That's us being timely. But then again, by doing all that, it gives you those three opportunities. First, to say, I'm going to take this percentage of what I have, and it's solely just for me. This is the selfish area. This is what I needed to consume. This is what I need to sustain me. Like, I have a car that gets me to work. I have a car that gets my children to and fro. I have a job that keeps a roof over my head. I have peace of mind in this season. This is sustaining me. This is from me to keep me and my family afloat and alive. That's one part. Then you can look at your blessings and say, you know what, now I could take a portion of this and this is what I'm going to use to distribute, right? That looks like I have so much advice and so much good resources in this season. I can share it. I could give it freely. And then it's also, I could distribute in terms of packaging things where now I become a solution to somebody's problem, right? Where I now receive compensation and I'm getting income just for distributing something that I've grown, distributing something that I've built well, right? Come on now. And that's going to give me income and resources to keep doing this over and over again. And the last portion of that is that now I can take a portion of those blessings and say, I'm going to store them. And this is where I think sometimes we could be like, that doesn't make sense. Like, why would I store anything that I'm grateful for? Well, that looks like when we're sometimes in seasons where we're like, I don't know why I keep coming across things and learning about forgiveness. I'm learning about how to survive and deal with periods of isolation or seasons of isolation. Well, I'm in the season of making the most money of my life. I'm in the season of having the best friendships of my life. I'm doing well. These things don't seem like they apply right now. Like, why am I coming across things about saving and investing? It don't apply right now. Well, maybe there's a season that's coming right around the corner. Well, you'll need to take what you stored up, the knowledge, the wisdom that you stored up that's not for use right now, but it will be. And the greatest thing, I almost forgot the last point of what I got from that devotional and what applies for this gratitude is that unless you pull all those pumpkins up, we're going back to the pumpkins, unless you clear off that whole field, then how will you make room for what's to come? How will you make room to plant more? And I think that's the biggest grievance that we cause ourselves when we leave things on the field. We have to, any farmer will tell you, they clear up the crops, even the things that died, even the things that didn't grow, they clear it off. So that way now they could prepare for next season. It's the smart thing to do. It's going back to that episode of preparation. And so for us, if we're not taking up all those areas of gratitude, how can we make room for more blessings? How can you make room for more? You didn't pull up that peace that you have, that joy that you have, and grasp understanding of it and put it to use right now in life. Why would you get more? How can you get more when you're choosing bitterness, when you're choosing resentfulness, instead of plucking up all those areas that tell you you have joy, that tell you you have peace, and focusing on those? There is no room. There is no room to plant more. There is no room to reap more. And so that's the most important part. And when I just was talking about the bypassing, Myron Golden, I've mentioned him once before in this podcast, but he does a great teaching. I can never even do it justice on have and lack. He says, how often do we bypass everything that we have in order to focus on our little areas of lack? Like, we have the 90%, that 10% that's not ours. The 10% that we haven't yet attained, or maybe we never will, or maybe it's not even for. How much 90% are you walking past just to get to that 10% and focus on that and say, I don't have. It's interesting. And yet, I'll take a step further. Sometimes when we don't have that area of lack, like, maybe it's for a reason. Is it keeping you balanced? Is it not even for you? Like, it might not even be something that you have a taste for or should have a taste for, because it's not even you. It's not authentic to you. But yet you're focused on, I don't have this and I don't have that. But what do you have? I am telling me, in this season, in order to progress, an attitude of gratitude is what we need. An attitude that looks at and honors and finds joy in and gets innovative with what we already have. The next attitude is an attitude of flexibility. Pretty much here, sometimes we have to pivot assertively, particularly in setbacks. What's good practice here is to be married to the outcome more than the process, right? And so that just looks like sometimes we're just like, I have to get somewhere this way, regardless of all the pain and all the, like, there's thorns, there's swords, you're getting stabbed in the back left and right. And you're like, I have to walk this road to get to that destination. No, you don't. The destination might be promised, but the route, be flexible. Like, are you subjecting yourself? Like, some setbacks, okay, is a setback. But like we said, sometimes we look back and say, okay, it wasn't so bad, and you're learning in the midst of it. But some setbacks you need to pay attention to. Are you subjecting yourself to harm? Or it may not necessarily be harmful, but are you allowing yourself to stay in an environment that's tempting you to go against your own values? And so you have to look at that sometimes we can, in this step, I was just thinking, like, sometimes we could stay in a situation too long and we start to see a good indicator, like, that maybe I might need to pivot or move on, is that maybe my patience is running really low. Okay. My patience is thin. Whereas before, I'm typically such a patient person. I notice that now I'm stepping out of my character on account of my environment, or a temptation for you to now end up blowing your opportunities on account of what you're tempted. And it's wisdom to know what's temptation for us, guys. Like, honestly, some people, like, you might offer somebody a cigarette and they're like, oh yeah, give me one. And for me, you might offer me a cigarette. I'm like, I'm good. But there might be something else that you offer me that now I'm like, okay, I'm sweating, beads of sweat rolling down my face. And that's because you're only tempted by what's actually the desires in you. And we like to, again, label things as bad or whatever, but it's okay to recognize what's in you. It's okay to recognize the areas that you tend to lean and you're a little bit weak in those areas. So that way, again, you can know, where do I need to be flexible? Where do I have to have a mindset and attitude of flexibility? So that way I can pivot to protect myself in this season and in a setback. So I know I've quoted Donnie McClurkin before, because I quote this a lot in my life. But after you've done all you can, you just stand. That's one. But sometimes after you've done all you can, you just walk or run. Okay? That's it. Run, child, run. Detour, and run, Forrest, run. Okay, thank you. That's it. I promise. Our next attitude is an attitude of resilience. And you know what I love about that word? Resilience, I think we often think of, well, we probably think of both, but I'll say for me, I love that resilience is definitely about, like, the bounce back, right? The ability to recover. But resilience is just as much about the ability to withstand And withstand is deep. It even goes back to, even if you wanted to use that like plant, that harvesting example, that certain grains, like if you think about it, when somebody plants something, they have to withstand a whole season that's completely different from the season in which it'll be harvested. And so they withstand fall, winter, just to be harvested in the spring or the summer. And so if you take that literally, it's like those crops, if a crop can stand through wind, I mean vicious wind, if a crop can stand through rain and it can stand through freezing cold, things that are not conducive to life for it, but yet is withstanding it. And if at the end of all that is still standing, and not just standing tall, y'all, I mean, grew all the way. Like if it was within me to grow 6 feet, I grew 6 feet. If it was within me to grow bright yellow or bright orange, I manifested all my colors. I grew everything I was supposed to grow. I grew my leaves. I grew everything, like, you know what I mean? In all the ways, if a crop can do that after withstanding all that, that's a strong crop. That's a good crop. It's probably going to taste yum, 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 delicioso, like I like to say. But when it comes to us, like that is, I keep going back to that, but that is a well-built crop. Man, I think that really stuck with me. But anyway, resilience. I was thinking with this tip or this attitude that a lot of times, particularly in setbacks, you know how we can get grouped. Like if you're in a setback when it has to do with your environment, like let's say there was a situation, or even sometimes it's people's shortcomings that are around you. And sometimes we can get grouped with bad situations. And that might look like, now people say, if you lost your job or if someone around you did something that was dishonest, now they're like, you're dishonest, or you're lazy, or you're broke, or you're problematic, because they're labeling you the same way they label the situation or the circumstance. And what I want to remind us here in this step about resilience is that your setback does not define you. It's not me. It's not me. It's not me. It's not me. And guess what? We've talked about this before, but even when you're truly the problematic one, like we talked about when you're the setback, if you're in a season of, I really caused a lot of damage to my reputation. I caused a lot of damage to my character, to my integrity. Maybe I wasn't even trying to be messy. It was just bad decisions. It just wasn't wise. Or it really just like, some things just snowball. You're like, I just hit that one red button. I didn't expect the whole explosion. Why? Our lives can look like that. Like I've had situations, y'all, where I'm just like, all I did was sign that one line. Now look at me. Now I owe you forever. I'm kidding, but I'm serious. Yeah, we can feel like, even when we're contributing or we're problematic for whatever reason, it's still, if we're in a season of trying to change, transform, recover, it doesn't define you. But guess what? We have to be patient though, because it takes time for people to view us differently. And not that it's all about people, but it does matter, because we talked about relationships and interdependence and how that does matter. It matters how we're viewed, because that's going to ultimately impact how much impact we can now have, right? That's why our character, that's why our integrity. So when people walk around and say, it don't matter, I don't care about people, it don't matter what people think about me. Yes, I understand completely how most of the time we mean that. But sometimes we take those things to an extreme, and it does matter. You want favor with people. You want favor with God, for me, God and man, because that's relationship, and that's what dictates how much impact you can actually make, how much people can actually trust and honor your word. And so you have to just wait sometimes for people to see you differently if you're coming from a situation like that. But in your waiting, you have to work. And what you're working on is working to simply not give up, y'all. That's the resilience. You got to withstand in order to get to the bounce back. Like, listen, we said resilience is both, but it's sometimes you need the one to get to the other. You got to withstand to bounce back. And so you're working to simply not give up, but you're working also to not default to not just automatically fall back on bad character. I think I've mentioned this, but if not, it's like, it's some things are I have mentioned this. It's very passive. Negative thoughts, negative behavior. Like, you don't have to try to catch a cold, right? Somebody sneeze and you ain't even do anything. I was just standing here. I just breathed. I mean, I have to breathe. I breathe. It's a response. If I'm alive, I breathe. And now I done got sick. I just got sick because I just did what I had to do to live. It's biological, okay? Physiological, that's what I did. I just, exhale. And then now I'm sick. You don't have to try to get sick, y'all, but you do have to work really hard and be active and not passive to be healthy, to be strong, to be resilient. And so, again, just think about no tall stalk of corn has to try to fall, right? It doesn't have to try to succumb to the wind and the weather and all the adversity that's out there. It's actually pretty easy, but what it does have to try ridiculously hard to do is to still grow in spite of that, is to still hold its roots, is to still develop. That's what it has to try and work really hard and be resilient in. And it's the same thing for us. You don't have to try to default when you're going through adversity. It's not very hard to default. It's not really hard to succumb. What it is very extremely hard to do is to be resilient, is to grow in spite of it, is to develop in spite of it. So that way, at the end, when your season is over of all those testing and all those trials and all those obstacles and all that adversity, you'll be a fully grown version, the best version, the most ripe version, the prime version that you need for the moment that you're in. Our next attitude, I couldn't quite find, I knew what I wanted to say, but I couldn't quite find the word. So I hope it makes sense, like in terms of like the label of the attitude. But it's so important. We need to adopt an attitude of respectfulness over resentfulness. And here's what I mean. If you desire something, then you have to respect it. You cannot envy it, because unless you begin to respect it, then it cannot come to you. T.D. Jakes actually teaches on this so eloquently and way better than I ever can, but he ultimately says you can't receive what you don't respect. What are we talking about here? If we're going to speak on the visions or goals that we want for our lives, then I think we often have to be mindful of the attitudes that we hold towards people who are working within those goals or those positions, as well as the position or the goal itself. I'll give a specific example, well, a general and then a specific one. Like if we say we want leadership, I want a platform to make an impact, I want business, I want wealth, things that we say and we mean. However, how are we viewing, what attitude do we hold towards in general, right? Towards people who are in those positions, people who are wealthy, people who have businesses, people who are in leadership. What attitudes do we hold towards them? Is it one of respect or is it one of resentfulness? And if so, if it's resentfulness, then we have to understand that we are actually harming ourselves more than we think we might be harming others with our judgment. I'm not saying that there aren't times, which we've all witnessed, that people who are wealthy and people who hold positions, that they're not doing the best job that they could be doing. Okay. So I'm not saying that we can't judge in terms of assessment, right? Because actually that's often needed from people who are not yet in that position. Like it cracks me up when people who are, and I've been guilty of this, but when you're honest, you have good integrity, you're competent, and yet we're assessing, you need to be the person assessing people in those roles that impact policy or, et cetera, because you would be a great person to navigate that role. However, what can happen or what tends to happen when we don't have the right attitude is that we begin to judge the people and the position in terms of, well, all people in wealth are like this or greedy and they're just out for this. All people in business are abusive, right? All people who are in leadership are incompetent. And so when you're doing that, it's not just a karma thing, right? I think sometimes we think about, well, it's what you put out. I agree with that. You won't attract it. there's that aspect. But very practically, guys, I think what we often struggle to understand is you're literally, if you're saying that this position or this person that I want in life is bad, why would your brain work towards you attaining it? Like, let's really think about this. We're saying, for example, I want to be wealthy. That's our own self-proclaimed goal, because everybody doesn't have the same goals. You're saying you want this, right? Yet to you, if this is the case, everyone who's wealthy will never be this. Everyone who's wealthy always does this. And wealth itself, just wealth, is evil, because anyone who has it, this is what happens. Your brain is associating wealth, the thing you claim that you want because it'll make life better, you'll do good by it, etc., etc. You're associating it with negativity. And we already talked about what that means in our brain. Why would your whole being help you work towards it? What are you going to actually do that's going to help you work towards wealth if you're seeing it as a stumbling block? And if you do, by some chance, achieve the wealth, you're setting yourself up, because chances are very highly likely, possibly, you're not doing the work to prepare yourself to now overcome and address the same challenges that this person who's wealthy, that you're seeing them fall or mess up potentially, that they're dealing with. I mean, let's be honest. Let's say on a level that truly requires accountability. You witness a wealthy person and they're dealing with scandal, cheating, lying, etc. It's very easy to say, I would have never. They should have. I'm not saying, again, we can judge to assess, like, that was not done well. There needs to be accountability. But I would never if I had it. They all ... It's easy for us to say that when you're managing an account and only $100 is on the line. It's easy for you to say that when you have dealing with one or two clientele, one or two employees, if you even have employees. It's easy for you to say what you would do. But we already talked about in one of the other attitudes, the temptation only does with what's inside of you, right? So now when you're managing an account of millions and billions of dollars, what you going to do? Maybe you don't even know that was a test for you until you're faced with it. You know how we say new levels, new devils? Well, here's a new devil that you didn't even have to face because it wasn't a reality for you. Now it is. Have you done the internal work? Have you respected what it takes to acquire wealth? Have you respected what it takes to be honest within wealth? Have you respected what it takes to make hard decisions within wealth? And now, have you now worked towards having those same qualities so that when you have it, you'll do what you're saying everyone, quote unquote, should do? Like, now you beat in sweat, sweet. You said, I know I said if y'all buy one, I'll donate one. But that's a lot of donations. I know I said that I would donate this X amount of dollars, but now that I finally have this money in my account, it's hard to part with. Like, I'm saying real things right now, y'all, that we should be thinking and contemplating before we resent or envy. And honestly, that was an example that required accountability. But how often are we using an attitude of resentfulness when people are in leadership or have wealth and they're not even doing anything wrong? We're just perceiving it wrong. There's so many places we could go here, but I'm going to summarize it like this. When you respect something, you aim to understand it. But when you envy something, you tend to judge it. And if your aim is to understand something, then just think about it. You'll start to gather knowledge on it. You'll start to try to apply that knowledge. And as a result, you'll position yourself to be more qualified for it. And not just that, you're giving respect to someone that's in a position, particularly if you're working underneath them or working with them, that now they see you as a person that has good character, as a person that's objective and that can be trusted. If you could be trusted in your now, then of course, when you have leadership and when you have wealth, because all those things are going to do are just magnify who you are. And so if you're an envious person, if you make assumptions, if you're not emotionally intelligent, then again, when you get to that role, it's only going to magnify that. And so respecting that and understanding those things now that's what's going to lead you there. But when you tend to, again, envy something and you're judging it, then you're looking at it through a foggy glass. You're not really trying to grasp what it takes. You're not really trying to grasp an understanding. And so it's going to be far from you. And if you do attain it, it's going to be really hard to attract people, the right people to that position. So I hope that makes sense. Having an attitude of respectfulness, not resentfulness. Our next attitude is an attitude of service. You ever think about, like, we all have needs, right? And we often say we're looking for someone to fulfill our needs, or we want our needs fulfilled. And there's a reason for that. It's because you can't fulfill all your needs on your own. And we've talked about in this podcast how interdependence is necessary, not codependence, not extreme isolation, but interdependence, because you can't answer all your own questions. You can't solve all your own problems. You can't scratch your own back in every place that it itches. You can't fulfill all your own needs. And so if you even think about, like, your gifting, when you have gifts, it's not for you. It's to serve other people. Like, I have never met a hairdresser who can do hair that's like, I'm just going to do my hair from now until eternity, and I'm gonna be slaying forever. This is all I ever wanted to do, is my own hair. If anything, people joke that most hairdressers that really do hair really well, a lot of times they be looking busted, and people be like, the busted one, her. That's the one I want to do my hair, because they don't have to make time to do their own. Or I've never met someone who is like a really great cook who's just like, I'm about to fix my own plate, something crazy. Now, they might cook their own selves food, of course, what they do, but they want to serve others because they love the joy and the fulfillment that they get from watching others grow or benefit from, or just be healed, or just wholeness from their gift. And so at the end of the day, fulfillment comes from serving. It comes from being a solution. Like, so it's the same way you need people for your needs, people need what you have. Okay. And so you shouldn't hide the solutions that you have that are the answer to somebody's problem, particularly when you feel set back in life. I know it feels like when I'm feeling set back, when I'm feeling like I'm losing, this is when I should withhold. But I know we all know this. In actuality, you should do the opposite, because sometimes that's the only, especially in a season of setback, that's the only place you may receive fulfillment. That's the only place you may receive a reward. That's the only place that you might feel like I still matter. I'm making an impact, because you see the literal results of what it is that you do that's innate to you. So I think that, we have to keep in mind that when you do serve, that oftentimes you're positioning yourself. The way I see it is, you could be positioning yourself for better for later. Like, by me, like we talk about, and we all go forward. If as you go, I go forward, tomorrow you might be that person that I need for you to go in order for I to go. Okay. And you might need for me to be that person. So I never know. You never know. It's kind of like in nursing too. The reason why it's important to not eat your young and to precept well and to train new nurses well is because tomorrow, and literally today, those are the nurses that are working alongside of you. So if you save all the skills for yourself, if you save all the hacks, if you save all the critical thinking and just ways that you've trained yourself, if you save all that for yourself, then tomorrow when you're in need of help and your ship is sinking quite literally on a shift, then the person that could have your back, the person that could be self-sufficient, you don't have that. So you're surrounding yourself by dangers. It's the same thing in our world when we're not reaching out to people, when we're not serving others, then really we're just creating people that won't be good neighbors. They won't be good community for a later date. And so you could be positioning yourself to literally, I could win just by helping you now. But the other thing I think is that you inevitably demonstrate that your value is needed. And so as a result, elevation or opportunity can come very swiftly on the account of people just noticing that you are what I need. And then the last thing I'll leave you with is that my coach actually, something he said to me that really stuck with me, was that if you had the cure to cancer and you were the only one, like you came up with the cure, you were able to develop it, would you hold it? Or would you feel like, I need to serve this to the world? And so we have to think about that, like the same way with our everyday gifts. We have giftings, whether that be administration, whether that be organization, whether that be speaking, whether that be encouraging, you name it. And some of us are just literally holding on to those gifts. We have a cure, and we're just sitting on it. And so if you had the cure, would you hold on to it or would you serve it? And I think we know the answer. The next attitude is an attitude of humility. We need to know our limitations, like the same way we just talked about knowing your area of gifting, right? And serving that up. We need to know in what areas we won't be as effective, because again, that's the other side of that coin of you can't scratch every itch, right? You can't solve every problem. And so you're not going to be gifted in every area. That looks like to me us understanding and acknowledging what will it really harm us, right? To highlight or acknowledge someone else's strength. This could be a struggle for us in so many different types of relationships. I mean, marital, coworker, friend, sibling, parenting. But for today, I wanted to address it from the realm of leadership in terms of if you're coaching or leading someone who exhibits strengths and giftings that you don't have, and how we can adopt this "we all go forward" attitude, right? And authentically create spaces to pull others up with us. Sometimes the worry might be that that person will stab you in the back, I would imagine, right? Or forget that you created this opportunity for them or that you created this room for them to grow. But we have to keep in mind that if leadership is contagious, then surely attitude is too, because attitude, again, is our settled way of thinking. It has to do with mindset, it has to do with belief that now is reflected in our behavior. So leadership in itself mandates certain types of attitudes that we're talking about. And so if leadership can be something that's taught and passed on, and you can influence other people, because leadership is influence, then attitude is the same thing. And so the hope is that most people you lead, they will lead themselves in the same way, have those same attitudes, and naturally be people that would not stab you in the back or would be cognizant of the opportunities you have created. But at the end of the day, if they don't recognize how much strength that took, how much confidence and how much trust you had to have in them in order to create that opportunity for them, if they decide to not recognize that, because we literally can't control what people do. Like you could control what you do, you could control what you give, what you offer. And importantly, you can control who you put around you, who you decide to coach and lead. So go on and be very careful and vet those personalities and those character traits that you decide to work with. But you can't control people's mindset. You can't control their gratitude. You can't control their thankfulness, right? And so I think that worst case, we have to see it as this was good practice, because you have to understand which hard will you choose. Will you choose not investing and not leading and not creating opportunities for people that we talked about in the last point that can now later be a blessing for you? And then you'll work in isolation and not be optimizing your influence, not be optimizing your impact. That will be a serious version of hard that will have repercussions in the long term. Or will you choose the hard of, let me do what's necessary despite the occasional risk. Let me coach, let me lead, let me essentially multiply my wisdom and giftings or skill in the earth by taking on this person, because what I get, what I benefit when I do that will outweigh any occasional risk of me being blindsided, of me feeling disappointed, and of me sometimes just making the wrong decision simply because I'm human. The other thing that's important too is when leadership is influence, then we can't be afraid that we'll lose that, right? Because your influence is never going to be, somebody else can't have the same influence you do, right? They're going to have influence in their own way, but we are not duplicates, carbon copies of each other. Even when you teach someone your own skills, that's what's unique about human beings. There are many of us, yes, but you might think there's only so many giftings that are available to go around. True. But when you put those giftings with everybody's unique personality and everybody's unique style and their creativity, no two influences will be the same. And so you won't lose your influence by highlighting someone else. Let's acknowledge other people's strength. Let's let them shine and understand that it won't undermine anything that we have going on. And give somebody the room to be that peace and that comfort and that heck for you, right? It gives you much more freedom as a leader and as an individual. So attitude of humility is very important. The last two attitudes are both connected and extremely important. So first, an attitude of abundance. The reason why this is important is because even though we're in a season of lack, we must always have an attitude of abundance. What is a season of lack? That may be quite literally, a time period where, life is just not matching up with all that your efforts have put in. Life is not matching up with how you envision it to be at this moment. So that could be less finances, that could be less relationships, that could be less connections, that could be less resources in any way you take it. And that's what makes it a season of lack. But again, even when we're in a season of lack, we must not maintain an attitude of lack. Instead, you need to always have an attitude of abundance. And we kind of hit on this a little bit when we talked about attitude of gratitude. However, I want to highlight a side of this that I didn't speak of at that time. So when we spoke about attitude of gratitude, we talked about that when you're in a let's not mix up season and attitude, or season and mindset. When you're in a season of abundance, i.e. life is giving you more, we need to, as we stated, store. Oftentimes, like in all the excess we get, we need to store for a season of lack that's coming, when we'll need to use what we've stored. But the other part of this that I want to stress here when it comes to having an attitude of abundance is that when you're in the season of lack, you now have to be okay to release still in this season. So if this is my season of less relationships, then I need to still be okay to release time and love to those relationships that are still present, because they are keeping me grounded. And if there's no one, if your story is that there's no one, you need to be okay to release grace and love to yourself. And if you're in a season of less finances, for example, then your attitude cannot match the lack. Your attitude has to be one of, I'll still release wisely and prudently the finances that I need to survive, the finances that I need to invest, and the finances I've decided to still give, even if it looks smaller or different in proportion to other seasons. And you can only do that if you have an attitude of abundance. You'll feel like, man, I'm wasting things that I need to hold on to because I have less. And that is a rigid mindset, and that is a mindset that shows limitation. Versus if you have a mindset or an attitude of abundance, it says, although I'm releasing still in a season of lack, it's helping you see that I'm only able to do this because abundance exists, right? That just because I'm releasing right now doesn't mean that everything I have to let go of won't come back to me. It doesn't mean I won't have another season of abundance. It doesn't mean that I won't be sustained in this season of lack. And so, again, quite practically, a lot of times we can see this when it comes to saving accounts. I'll just use that example. That if you've been saving and doing what you need to do, like a lot of times we have emergency funds, right? Or we have, I'll just say an emergency fund. And when we're in a season of abundance, that emergency fund or that savings account is just growing. We're so happy about it. And then an emergency hits and we have to release. We have to spend what it is that we stored up. And we get so upset about it. I don't know if you're anything like me. I do. Maybe you're more mature and you have not. We get so upset about it because we're like, dang, I have this excess and now it's wasted. But is it wasted? Oftentimes what we have to think about is, what would life look like right now, particularly in a season of lack, right? That's our season of setback. That's an adversity that we're dealing with. What would life look like if you didn't have that abundance stored up? What would life look like if you didn't use wisdom in those previous seasons? Okay. So that's one side of it, to look like, let me not even be bitter or resentful or upset about this, because I quite frankly may not have survived this if I didn't store up. But again, the other side of this is there's more coming. Like if I was able to have a season of abundance, how about another one that's coming? How about it'll be so great next time that not only will I be able to have and release from me, I'll be able to potentially have and release for others who are in a season of lack, because I'll just have that much excess. And so we have to understand, I always talk about those two sides of the coin, that you're not going to always, actually there was the Budgetnista. She was recently on I want to say Social Proof podcast. I didn't get to listen to the episode, but I saw a quick clip, and she was talking about pendulums and how in the pandemic her business hit this was sometimes like uncommon like success. And it wasn't that they weren't doing well, but it was just really uncommon. And she said, you know what? A lot of people might say, oh, this is always going to be here. I'm always going to have this excess. Let me just spend, live my best life because we rich now. And she's like, nope. She set aside because she understood that when the pendulum swings one way, it has to swing the other way too. And I think sometimes we just lose grasp of that reality. We think like, oh, life is just terrible. No, life is just going through its cycles. Like everything has a season. It rains, it's sunny. We grow, we die. Everything, you cry, you laugh. There is a season to everything. And so you have to understand when the pendulum is one way, you're using that, yes, as preparation for when it swings in the other way. But you have to also, from a mindset and an attitude standpoint, keep in mind that when this pendulum is the other way, like when it's on the low side, when it's on the depressing side, you have to remember, there's an other side to this pendulum. I've been there before and I can get there again. And that's what the attitude of abundance teaches us. And so here is the best time to insert the attitude of patience as the final attitude that we need in this season. And final for this episode, there are a million gazillion attitudes that you guys can think of. But the reason why the attitude of patience is needed is because a time is coming when the pendulum will swing back to abundance, guys. And I want you to hear me. Right now, things may be tough. Right now, things may be grim. Right now, people might have the worst impression of you. Right now, you might feel like you're failing in every aspect of life. You're failing in your marriage. Your parenting is sucking. Your kids are doing terrible in school. Your self-esteem is at an all-time low. Your bank account is at an all-time low. The stressors are coming left and right. But heed me, because I have to remind myself of this. A time is coming when the pendulum will swing the other way, where you will be in abundance again. And when that time comes, it'll make you forget about all your trouble. It'll make you forget the pain. It'll make you, and not necessarily completely forget about it, the pain, but it won't hurt anymore. And it'll make people forget what you look like when you were in a state of adversity. And so until we get there, you have to have an attitude of patience, because patience says, I'll wait. And it's not just that I'll wait, it's how I'll wait. I'll wait expecting, I'll wait anticipating, I'll wait hoping, because that is patience. Any other type of waiting is not patience. If you're snapping left and right, it's not patience. But patience, an attitude of true patience, remembers and holds fast to and believes wholeheartedly the time is coming. And when the time comes, we'll be here to celebrate you. But most importantly, you'll be there to celebrate yourself, because you waited and you endured patiently and well. Well, that's all, folks. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode on attitudes. If you are enjoying this podcast, you already know what to do. Give us a like, give us a review, give us a follow, give us a comment, all of the above. Whatever you do, please remember that as we move in the right direction, that is forward and progressing, never stagnant, we become a resource to help others move in the right direction. And the cycle continues, but only if we move. That's right. If you go and I go, then we all go forward. Let's get moving.